Well, I am so excited to dive in today and geek out on herbalism with you, Kristen. Back, what was it, the beginning of 2024? I believe we definitely started following each other on threads.
Yes.
And then you were a lifesaver when my housemate came home with COVID and sent me down the ginger rabbit hole. And I actually really ended up enjoying the ginger tea. I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed it. I've always been a fan of ginger. It's not like it's, like a new, I guess you would call it a root. But making it into a tea was just such a completely different experience. Like my body felt so clean afterwards. It almost felt like I couldn't or I shouldn't do anything that was like not very aligned health wise after I drank it. It made me feel so good. Do you think that's like a normal thing? Do you feel that way after you drink it?
For for you, it could be. How did you end up preparing the tea? Was it the fresh root and then you would grate it into a hot water tea, or how did you make your ginger tea?
Yeah, I just peeled it, grated it up. I did it a couple of different ways, over the course of the days and just boiled it for usually about
Sure.
25 minutes.
Sure.
And then added some honey and some lemon. But also just drank it just with the ginger itself. But man, it just like really, again, it made me feel so clean on the inside. It was
Yeah,
interesting.
so it's amazing as an antiviral, but what it also does is if your body is needing it for like the warming properties or some stagnation in your body, depending on what's going on, it could really be therapeutic. Ginger is an amazing rhizome root medicine. There's the fresh ginger preparation, which is different than a dry ginger preparation, and they're both two completely different medicines.
Hmm.
But the fresh ginger root is really the one preparation that's the most antiviral in certain respects. But it's got that heat. It's got like the natural oils coming out of it into the tea, and it starts to just work in the body. And I think it's an amazing medicine for many people. I love it for me because my constitution is very cold and drying naturally.
Hmm.
So, and my circulation isn't great. And that's just how my body naturally is. So ginger for me is also warming, stimulating, circulating in my body. So I love taking ginger as well. You're taking it for the antiviral benefits, but just, how it makes you feel, that warmth, and the circulation starts to move from the inside of you outward. It's
Yeah, it
an
was really
it's
incredible. I'm very pitta, and I know we're not necessarily going to be diving into the Ayurvedic constitutions necessarily, but I remember reading on your website you're very Vata. And usually
very
warming
vata.
things for me are like too much. I don't like them at all. Like my astrology sign is primarily fire. I don't like being hot. Like I kind of run away
Are
from
you
it.
you're a Leo? Are you a Leo? Do you have Leo in your astrology?
I'm a
I
right
think you
Leo
do.
rising, I'm a double
Leo
Sag,
rising.
Leo
Okay.
rising. But yeah, I just and again ginger's not new to me, but having it in this way was very new. And I just absolutely loved it. I mean, honestly, like if I didn't have to peel all the ginger,
I know.
when I asked you, I was like, do I have to peel it? And you
You
were
really
like,
don't.
yeah.
Well, it's better. It depends on where you're buying it, but you really don't have to. You just want to give it a good scrub. You can chop it, you can slice it, chop it into fine pieces. It all works. It really
Really?
does. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I honestly I think I could drink it all the time. So, yeah, I couldn't believe how good it felt in my body. And then again, it really felt like it was putting me on this path towards wanting to. It was like I felt like I needed to make healthy decisions following it. It was very surprising to me. I think I'm a lot more sensitive drinking it at this stage in my life than I was when I was doing so when I was younger. Um,
Yeah, it
But
tends to shift when you might want to bring that into your life. It absolutely has a place and a time. Like you're saying, your Pitta, your primary constitution is Pitta, but I could see that you probably also have Kapha too, just based on your characteristics. And it's something that I've always kind of dabbled in with Ayurveda. Like I almost start to just read someone right away when I'm seeing them for the first time, when I'm hearing them for the first time, the downloads that I do receive, what primary constitutions are into play usually happens right away. So when you have the kapha in addition to the pitta, that's probably why, you love the way the ginger felt, because it gets things moving, especially winter time, coming out of winter. You want to start to warm up and start to move.
yeah,
So you started to feel a little bit of that energy as well.
yeah,
And
yeah, it
it's so
really
simple. It's
resonated.
just ginger tea. And it's like, boom, you already noticed how it was making you feel.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. So, in regards to today, of course, I have so many questions for you about herbalism and just a number of different things. But I think maybe a really good place to start, for those who are joining who maybe haven't ever heard this term or have only kind of briefly heard it, I'd love to just hear kind of what your definition of herbalism is.
My definition of herbalism is living in unison with the plants, with the plants, the trees, the flowers, all of it. And feeling like we're living in unison with the natural world, and recognizing the ability of the plants to be able to heal us in many different respects. And this goes along the lines of what it means to be a holistic herbalist and working with someone as as the whole person. Um, you you really want to work with someone and look at them not only on a physical level, but you also want to take into account the energetics of that person, their emotional health, and their spiritual health as well.
So it sounds
So
like a really beautiful sort of
it's
circular
all
process.
encompassing. So that's the type of herbalism that I would like to practice, and I am practicing for myself, practicing for others, and this is important work. So it's like the herbalism that I believe in and practice is that you believe that you can use the plants to help heal yourself, not only the physical level, but also on the energetic level. You know that walking in nature is healing in itself. You hear the terms of forest bathing. You're working inside, a cubicle or in an office building all day, and as soon as you step outside and go for a walk, breathing in the fresh air, it totally can reset your nervous system. So taking that into account, all of it, not just taking ginger tea because you want to ward off a cold, understanding what that particular plant is doing for you on many different levels.
Yeah, I love that. I think for me, when I think about herbalism, my stepmother, I think, was really kind of, I grew up in restaurants. And so herbs and, these sorts of things were kind of always a part of life. But it really wasn't until my stepmother came into my life and she had all of these really cool sorts of, she was growing lots of herbs out in her garden and she had all of these really cool kind of like, I just thought of them as like old wives' tales, like these recipes, like how to cure this or how to work with this. And I had encouraged her to create a book at one point because she has so many different cool recipes. But I think that in a lot of ways, the way that our society looks at them is kind of like, oh, they're very, very like they're too gentle on the system. They don't really make that big of a difference. Oh, you need like actual medicine. This is going to be much stronger for the body. What are your thoughts on that?
I think herbs in general can be very gentle. It depends on what it is you're looking at, what you're working with, and how extreme. You know, it there are absolutely therapeutic doses of herbs that are essentially therapeutic. Like you can take ginger as a tea, but you can actually create a tincture of ginger that is amplified and it's incredibly concentrated in a therapeutic dose. So you're getting into a whole range of how much of that particular plant and herb and at what strength. So then you go into what's called like kitchen herbalism that you would like to help treat yourself, but then working with someone like me, working with an herbalist who's actually trained to administer or just offer herbs at a very concentrated therapeutic dose. I also feel that just using an herb to treat a symptom is still kind of competing, and it's in that mindset of allopathic medicine where you're treating a symptom with an herb, and it doesn't always work that way with herbs. It's kind of like that, you know, it's in that medical system that we're in now where you're going, to see your medical doctor and you want to take aspirin for something, you have a headache and you want to just take aspirin, and you are taking something like that because you have a headache, and that is going to help buffer some of the symptoms. But then you want to ask yourself, like, well, why do I have a headache? What is the underlying cause of why I feel a headache? And kind of look at that first and see what else is going on. What's the underlying issues there? It's kind of like playing a detective, which is what I really, really like. Like, I have nothing against taking Advil, Aleve, Tylenol. I mean, I've done it. I do it sometimes still. But understanding why it is that I'm taking it. What's going on? Am I hungover? What's causing the discomfort, before I'm reaching for a bottle of something.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, to me it's really the difference between like the way I view Eastern and Western medicine. Like
mhm.
Western medicine for me, uh, over the past several years that I have, struggled in different ways with my health and tried to get answers. It's like Western medicine is focused on maintaining and just kind of dealing with what is versus actually going to the root of what is going on, which I very much
Exactly.
view as like Eastern medicine, and I
Exactly.
think that the two work beautifully together. I have a friend who's
Absolutely.
having some eye issues right now. And, what's great is that he has been going out, he's been getting MRIs and all these different things to just kind of see medically what may be going on. But then he's going to take that information and then start looking at holistic ways to also work with it, you
Right.
know?
To support it or to understand, the root causes of it. And, again, some people might also choose not to want to take certain medications because of side effects.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you need to take something for a little while, and then you may have a plan to want to back off of that. Maybe you can replace it with something. Maybe it'll help you also dial back into what can I change in my lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Is it food related? Is it an allergy? Is it something that I was born with? I really feel it's important to look at all of it. So what I do when I work with someone is I really get to know someone's really their life, their history, as much as someone's willing, to want to share with me um, what makes them who they are, in addition to, you know, looking at your constitution. I might look at your tongue. I might feel your pulse. We might talk about your family history, your relationships. What are your goals in life? That's going from a whole spectrum of the physical state of someone and just taking the whole of someone into consideration about what's really what's going on with this person, what's manifesting in these symptoms of discomfort. Sure, we'd like to treat them, but what, what else should we be looking at to change?
Yeah.
To
Yeah. I
bring
think,
someone
go ahead.
back in, to bring someone back into a state of balance, right? In order for them to move on and grow and change.
And I know that, I mean, I feel like so many people, just the way our society here is in the West, right? Everything, like we've got all these fast food restaurants and everything about health online is like this hack for this and hack for that. And I'm sure that probably a lot of the people that you work with, like I'm curious how you kind of, because in order for folks to actually start, I think, getting to the root and making real change, it is really about that slowing down enough to be like, okay, let's look at this as like a whole picture, of, because like you're saying, I mean, everything from like, how are you sleeping at night? How happy are you in your relationships? What food are you doing? Are you moving your body? Are you like, all these things are really
All of
important
it.
to take into account. But I know that for a lot of people, it's really overwhelming. And I think scary for them to think of like, oh my gosh, I have to actually slow down enough to think about all that. Right.
Yeah.
So what do you kind of share with folks in that regard?
I start slow. I know it's overwhelming and it's really difficult. And it really all depends on someone's comfort level. I just started working with someone who she's maxed out. She's maxed out. She's sick. She knows she's uncomfortable. She's stressed. She's not sleeping well. She's got acid reflux. She just got I think what did she have? She had something, I think it was an allergic reaction. It actually showed up in her eye. She has asthma and they put her on steroids. It was like a course of like 10 days. And she was just fed up. She was tired of it. She's maxed out. There's nothing else that she could take that's going to help her and what she's going through and what she's tired of going through. And I just spent enough time with her to listen. What does she want to work on first? What are her biggest complaints or just the biggest, the biggest issues that she's feeling? And I try to start there. And I try to give examples of what she's feeling and experiencing and what could help. And it's difficult to explain it sometimes in terms for her to understand because I could see stagnation in, say, in her liver. And I could see it manifesting in a lot of different ways, and then along with food allergies. So my initial talks with her are listening to what she's feeding herself, making some of those changes there that she's comfortable with, and starting to get things moving and starting there. Really, it's about finding the starting point, I think,
Yeah.
especially for someone that is on medications and she's on a lot of pharmaceuticals and she's got asthma and a lot of allergies as well. But really, it's finding a comfort level with someone. Where is she at and what does she want to work on first? And for her, it was stress and sleep. So then it's, that's where we started to have her change a few things on what she's eating, modifying some of her supplements as well, because there are some things that she's taking that I think are aggravating what's going on. And she's taking them because she feels they're good for her. Like garlic is a supplement that she's taking. And I feel like it's a little agitating for her. So there's a little tweaks that we're doing there. And then there's some tweaks that we're doing just to start to get her moving, her systems moving, her stagnation moving. So it's exciting. She's excited. She's she's feeling like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she doesn't have to feel like she's locked into all of this stuff that she's taking. She's open to trying something else that she feels she's aligned with. And that's also important too. What what sounds good to you? Does it sound nice for you to take a tea, or does it sound nice for you to take something else? Finding also what works for her,
Yeah.
how she would like to take herbs into her body. And then it's also not just stopping there, it's also lifestyle too, making recommendations on getting her to walk, get out in nature, move. She's going from home, office, home, office.
That would be
Yeah.
terrible. I have to be outside. Like I have to be
And
outside.
it's
But
yeah,
that's the reality for a lot of people is, I mean,
it
like,
is.
they've got kids, they've got like a number of different things. And so even something like getting out for a walk is like moving mountains. It's huge. So there's a lot of discussion, again, in sort of just like the health wellness, like in the collective conversation these days about, there's always a superfood and there's always like a new supplement you should be taking or a new tea you should be doing or those sorts of things. And I mean, like that stuff stacks up, not only in price, but then you've got things that like don't necessarily work together or may zero each other out. Like when it comes to supplements, and like I'm speaking specifically about like herbal supplements. I mean, like garlic's pretty intense, like if you're going to take that, I feel like it needs to really be purposeful because it could inflame
It
so
does.
much.
Absolutely. You don't want to just take it because garlic
Mm-mm.
can be good for you, which is
But
it's a
there's
great
so much
herb.
out there that says, so like what do you like what is your advice for people, because of course they've got all this information being thrown at them about what they should be taking, you know I know that's kind of like a huge
It
question, but
it is a huge question because I mean, when you're generally healthy, I don't, you could take everything in moderation, really. You want to take a garlic supplement, that's fine. Green tea supplement, that's great. I think that everything in moderation really is fine. It's almost when you start to see imbalances in someone, then you start to question what is the cause of that. Um, you say the garlic supplement, that's a good example. You decide to start taking that, and you're noticing that you're getting digestive issues, acid reflux. Um, Garlic is very hot. Garlic can be very irritating. So if you have already some kind of I don't know, like a heated digestive issue, that's going to amplify it.
yeah,
So you're going to know right away if something is like, oh, it's just not feeling right for me. And you may want to back off of that. Or just question if you're trying something new and it's just not feeling right for you. There's something there that's not working.
yeah,
I don't have really one resource to start to like kind of do like a check and balance on something new that you may want to start, because there's so much information out there, unfortunately. Um, there are trusted herbal resources though, if someone really wanted to look at dosage, how much to take, how many times a day, how often, night, morning, with food, without food. Um, there's some really good herbal resources out there. I wouldn't really be able to name just one,
yeah.
but I would try to stay off of, Google, just general Google searches, because it's, there's just too much.
There's
There's
so
too
much.
much.
It's kind of like it's like I mean, I think that there are bits and pieces that one can pick up along the way, but at least for myself, I feel like a lot of the health issues that I've experienced in the past decade of my life, I've gotten to these places along the way where like I'm taking all of these things and yet I'm not really seeing, the needle move in any sort of direction. And so then I'm like backing off again and then like maybe trying different things. And one of the reasons that herbalism is so interesting to me, and I think is really becoming a lot more interesting to more people in these times, is just because like we don't want to be on medicine. We understand the side effects. We're wanting to find different sorts of remedies for ourselves. And I mean, I've never been someone who enjoys taking medicine. And yet there are imbalances within my life. And so trying to figure those things out is an important step for me.
Sure.
Um, and of course, like you said, like there's so much information out there. For me, it's been sort of an intuitively led practice, but that was like one of the reasons I was excited when we kind of connected, because I'm like, oh my gosh, here's someone who, I can learn from, potentially work with, to get some answers about these things in regards to what is right for me, because I can spend all the time and money researching and trying new supplements and going these different routes, but I'm not the specialist in this area. And I think my intuition does a great job of leading me to certain things, but at the same time, like, how am I, like, what amount of time and resources and money am I wasting in that process? And I think for a lot of people, I've certainly heard amongst my clients, like they're very interested in herbalism, but like working with someone feels very intimidating, because, of course, like insurance doesn't cover it and these sorts of things. So, how do you recommend people kind of step into the process? What's the best way for them to go about it?
I think feeling aligned with someone is important. I think doing some kind of a discovery call, finding out how someone works. Um, it's interesting that you mentioned like the intuition, because in my practice, there is quite a bit of that there, which really is just kind of it's intertwined with like my personal healing journey, my transformation, and how I've really identified with this role as an herbalist, from past life to, visions that I've seen of myself in the future, and trying to connect all of that in my place and time. I feel that we're headed in that direction where people are opening up to who they are, how they practice, offering some guidance with whatever they do know. Um, it's tricky because you did mention that insurance doesn't cover it. Unfortunately, hopefully it does someday, because it is considered, the alternative therapies. Um, I could definitely see a place for herbalism in conjunction with modern medicine. I think there's a place for all of it. I think there's a place for pharma. I think there's a place for herbalism. And I think that it should be seen as a full spectrum, depending on who the person is and where they feel comfortable. Um, I I do feel that, working with someone, again, you want to understand how they work and what they could provide. A direction where I am currently heading is to be registered with the American Herbalist Guild. And to get to that point, to show that you're registered, you have to build quite a bit of educational hours and clinical hours. And it's this full process. But that's showing dedication and trust too, to work with someone. And even if someone doesn't know the answers, that they're working towards that goal to find those answers for someone.
Yeah. You have
And
quite a bit of, um, sorry, go ahead. Did you want to finish? Sorry.
I lost my train of thought, actually. I
I get
think I just
excited
lost
and
it.
then I interrupt and I'm just like, my apologies.
No, it's okay.
You have so much, like I shared with you kind of before we started recording, like your background, your training, in, traditional Western herbalism, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, medical astrology. Like
Yeah,
I'm so envious.
I
There's so much here. It's pretty
when I look
incredible.
back, I realized that I had a fascination with so much of that, like Ayurveda. Like I started studying
I love it.
Ayurveda,
Gosh.
I think years ago, years where I was so curious about myself.
Yeah.
And once I learned about myself, I was able to identify and see patterns in other people. And I just loved it. I loved being able to read someone and say, oh, well, I could tell like what's going on in your life, how they feel, what it's wild. I just it's nice to know that I've always had this practice and this knowledge in me, even from a younger age, and being able to just embrace that now, leading from a good heart-centered space and just bringing that forth because there's so much good in that work.
Yeah. I own far too many Ayurvedic books. I started learning about it, I think back in uh 2015, I believe. And I've often thought about like going to like a school or something in India, just to, I
Yeah.
mean, not
Like I
even
should be
like for
eating.
professional fun, honestly, just because I'm so curious about it. And like you, I think the body to me, especially the more I dive into my work, even within the Akashic Records, like the body is a huge focal point in what I do and the focus I have. And so everything that I can learn about it is, like I want to learn about it. Um, you've done multiple things. I'm curious which one is kind of, if any, is like really like a leading force in your work, or maybe like kind of a path that you're most passionate about, or potentially one you use the most, or
As far as my role, or are we talking about a plant? What are we talking about? What?
I guess my question is again, like Ayurvedic, Chinese medicine,
Oh,
herbalism, these are
okay.
all a bit different. Medical astrology. I'm just kind of curious if there's one that you just really kind of lead with the most.
No, I don't think there's, well, no, I don't have one that is going to be my primary because I feel that they're all going to be useful in different ways in different situations, especially working with different people from all over and what they believe in, what their bodies are calling for, what their spirits are calling for. It's like what's going to click into place for someone to understand what could be going on within their body, and what they would like to apply,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. I mean, it sounds a little heady and it sounds so air like it, but in a sense it is because it's so, for me, it's so not textbook. It's also energetic too. And returning to that place of holistic herbalism, a good holistic herbalist looks at all of those things.
Yeah. No, it doesn't seem airy to me at all. I was just curious from
It's
like
that
a
triple Gemini thing.
well, I do
Well,
you know what your profile is in human design? I'm like, is she a first line? She's got to be a first line. You may not know, but
I dabbled in it, and I think it came out as projector. Does that make any sense?
for sure. But your profile is like a number, like a fraction, like a 1 3 or a 5 1 or a. If you don't remember, that's okay.
I think I have it in my phone. I have not identified with that yet. I'd like to look. I'd like to look. Maybe you can teach me about that.
Yeah. Well, no, no, no. I'm recognizing myself and someone else again, just like loving, because I know that, I mean, at least for me, like in my work, since I've stepped into more of the metaphysical, spiritual, I used to be a marketing exec, like I've learned so many different modalities and then I've kind of brought them together, but they really have been brought together through the lens of the Akashic records. And that's just been my path. So that was kind of why I was curious. But I mean, like, all of those different pieces, depending upon how I'm working with people, because of course, I've got clients who are primarily Akashic clients, but then I've also got mentorship clients, and I work with them very differently than just my, Akashic clients. And so, um, I think personally that when you love something, that you're gonna like want to have a really nice mix of a bunch of different types of modalities so that,
Mm.
and then mixing that, of course, with your intuition is really important to that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm curious, like, I mean, I feel again, herbalism is a big topic. There's so much here. Like, if someone was wanting to learn more about herbalism for themselves or kind of start stepping into the field, like, where would you even suggest that they might begin?
There's some great self-study courses online. Like I started with the Herbal Academy. It just felt like the right fit for me. It's East Coast, and I just felt like their plant profile and their message was more in line with where I am growing up from, in the Northeast. So Herbal Academy is one. There's like Chestnut School of Medicine. Another great program is the Evolutionary Herbalism with Sage Popham. He's one of my current teachers, and I absolutely love his dynamic and his knowledge. I've learned so much from him in a short period of time. So, and there's some, really small scaled courses there, just to see what speaks to you and learn some of herbalism, some of what you could just do for yourself, plants you can grow, things that you already have close by that you can start to just dabble in, be curious, see what feels right for you. And I found that, they can be affordable. They have a lot of short courses, and they have professional clinical programs, which I decided to do and dive into because it's just my path. But it's a good place to start for sure.
Nice. So when it comes to working with herbs, like it was interesting, you mentioned like you kind of decided with your client to focus on stress and sleep. It's like, and honestly, I feel like these are like the biggest topics right now, when it comes to the body. Like there's a lot of people not sleeping well,
Mhm.
and everybody's dealing with stress on one level or another, whether
Yeah,
they're tapping
huge.
into that collective stress or it's like within their own personal life. So what are some herbs or some ways that you might kind of suggest for folks? I know this is general because it's not a, you know, specific protocol for one person, but what are some herbs or what are some recommendations that you might have for folks?
I think to want to start to apply something gentle that could help you is to look at some of relaxing herbs, nervines for sleep, stress, um, and they're gentle. Again, speaking from like an Ayurveda standpoint, you may want to look at something that tends to be more warming or something that tends to be more cooling. So for someone like yourself, you tend to you mentioned the pitta constitution. So, like an herb for you that could help with stress and maybe also some sleep would be like passion flower. Very gentle. People are starting to learn more about passion flower because it's gentle. It's a nervine, but it also tends to have the ability to stop the overactive mind.
Mhm.
Um, if you want something that's more gentle and warming, and it could help with the digestion and also with the mind, and kind of have a connection with both, is something simple like chamomile. Everybody knows chamomile. It's such a basic herb, and it's a great herb. It's a
Yeah.
great herb for digestion, but it also helps to relax the mind. And so you're getting the benefits of helping both of those areas. you know um Sleep is a big one, it's an issue for a lot of folks, and it depends on, what's going on. Is it the overactive mind? Is it hormones? There's a lot regarding sleep and what's causing someone to not be able to rest at night. So that one's a little tricky. It really depends on what it is. I don't think there's one herb that's going to treat both, because if your mind is super overactive and you're just trying to, or say, for instance, if it's a hormone related sleep, disturbance, taking something that's just going to try to help relax the mind and stress might not work. So it really depends. Stress is a big one too, but there's a lot to uncover with stress.
Yeah.
And so looking more at, what's going on with the body that's causing the stress is really important. Because it could be a system imbalance. It could be something that is deep rooted, that's just not necessarily an herb is going to fix. It could be someone that needs to go for a walk or talk therapy. What's causing it? It's really going back to the root. It's like when I sit with someone and they tell me, stress and sleep, you start to dial back. Okay, so, well, when did it start? What amplifies it? What makes it better? Just start like a Q&A. And you can do this for yourself too. You can start to journal and say, okay, so when do I start, feeling better? When does it start feeling worse? And start to see if you can uncover more about what's going on. And then you might start to really feel some true answers that are coming from your intuition too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And herbs can help.
Self-inquiry is so powerful.
It is. And herbs can help. There's absolutely herbs that I love when I'm feeling stressed. Blue vervain is a great one. The passion flower I mentioned again, those are, they flow in and out of my system when I need them. But again, it's never, this herb can fix that. I don't like to look at it that black and white. There's a lot of gray area in between there.
Yeah.
And it's something that you may feel could help you for like a week or two, and then it shifts to something else. So again, that's another reason why it's important to understand what's really going on.
Yeah. So flower essences, and I know you make some tinctures, which I totally want to geek out on with you, if I can speak. But one of the things that I got into sort of the latter part of last year is Bach flower essences. And it was so like, of course, I got into them through astrology. I was like, what? And then, of course, I just started geeking out really hard. And there's like a flower essence for like freaking everything. I'm so curious if well, first of all, I'd love to know what you think about flower essences. But like, how is it that there's like, it seems like there's, uh, it's just like there's a plant for every single thing. And the Akashic Records have talked about numerous times, not only in my Akashic Body course, but just in some of the channeled readings that I've shared on the podcast, but about how there is like every remedy we could ever need is on this planet already, for anything that is going on. But I'm just so curious about how it is. Like, I literally have some vervain right here for my Leo rising. I don't think it's blue vervain, but it's vervain nonetheless. But I'm so curious about how they kind of connect these flower essences with all of these different sort of characteristics or focuses.
I don't know how they make the connection. I don't know where that comes from. It's incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
Like who I suppose just, plants being like our first teachers, someone along the way had discovered, different plants or different flowers and their effects for different reasons. That's an interesting question, because who discovered that and who made that connection, and for it to be tried and tested and for it to stick, for it to have its purpose. Like I make a wonderful elixir from honeysuckle flowers, and I make another one from rose. And I absolutely know those flower profiles and how they make you feel. And it's just interesting. Like we just know, or we just inherit that knowledge. I don't know where they come from, but I think they're pretty cool. I like flower essences. I know that there are some that are more of a vibrational imprint of the flower itself, say for like, and I don't even know what the flower does, but I know that there's a line where she does flower essences and she does one for daffodil.
Mm.
And daffodil are pretty toxic. Like I wouldn't make an elixir. Like the way I make an elixir is you have all the medicinal constituents of the flower as well as the vibrations, like the whole plant itself into a formula. But the daffodil flower essence is, say you take the daffodil flowers and you put them in a crystal bowl of pure water, and it's the essence and the vibration of that flower that's supposed to infuse into that water. And then you can preserve the liquid with a little bit of brandy or something that's going to keep it from any kind of like bacterial contamination. So that flower essence you're taking in as really for your spirit, your soul, like what that plant profile would feel like for you to connect with and to bring in internally inside. It's
What
not
does
the
she make that
medicine.
one for? The
I don't
dandelion.
know. No, it's daffodil.
Oh, daffodil.
Daffodils. I don't remember
Interesting.
what she makes it for. So there's a lot of flower essences with um, flowers that we wouldn't want to consume as herbalists, for herbal medicine, but it's more the vibrational profile, the energetics of that particular flower and plant that you're bringing in, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me. I mean, of course, everything is energy, right? So anytime we mix one type of energy with another type of energy, it absolutely changes, the
Sure.
vibration.
Sure.
And I have definitely noticed in taking some of the flower essences a shift, and it's subtle, and it's something that I think, because it is so subtle, it usually takes me a while to kind of really feel that shift, for me to become sensitized to it, I think. But it's very fascinating to me. So the tinctures that you made, I'm curious, like, first of all, folks who are listening, you have to go check out Kristen's website. She's got all kinds of really cool things to purchase. I love whenever I see the word like small batch, I'm like, okay, I get excited.
Yeah, yeah. It's very small batch and it's super fun, and it's things that I have made just from what I've collected, wild mushrooms and things in the wild that I've gathered and processed myself. And then there's some really fun formulas that are actually therapeutic doses of beautiful plant medicine that I've combined in formulas with certain intentions. And it's so fun to just create and send it out there and just see, what calls to people.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just kind of looking at your website. We've got calming, clarity, of course,
Mm,
elderberry, which I think is always helpful. Um, lion's mane, I think, has become so popular these days.
And
And
very popular. And that's a lot of fun to make. It's complicated, but it's fun because you're pulling medicinal properties and alcohol, and then you're creating it into you're making a decoction with it as well. So you're doing water, heat, alcohol extraction. You have to combine it into a usable form, and you want it to taste good as well. So it's fun, and it's powerful. It's neat. It's neat.
yeah, it's really cool. I think that, I
And
mean, like,
some of the offerings too are, they're universal, and they may not be meant for everyone, but it just goes to show a little bit about what some of like a compound formula could look like for you. So those are examples of what exists, some of what I've just put out there that people seem to commonly need, like the calm. It's got the blue vervain in it, it's got the passion flower in it. It's just, they're good medicines, and people seem to do really well with them when they have a lot of heat, a lot of fire, hot tempered, maybe need to cool down a little bit of a frazzled mind.
it's like everyone these days, I feel like. So how do you suggest that people like best take tinctures, elixirs, these sorts of things? Like, what's the best way for them to ingest these?
Best way is probably a very small glass of water, or a short amount of water, juice, tea. You can just drop it in there and take it, just drink it. If you like the way it tastes, or you don't mind the way it tastes, you can just drop it right into your mouth. Lion's mane, that is recommended to take directly into the mouth and just hold it a little bit, let it absorb.
Is
Depends
it
on
like
the
on the tongue or under the tongue, or it doesn't
under the
matter?
tongue, sublingually, or just hold it into your mouth a little bit to help absorption before you swallow. Some tinctures that I have listed on there, like the bitters, you want the bitter taste because that does start to help with the process of how bitters work for our bodies.
Mm.
It's tough to take without a little bit, a little bit of water, but a little bit of water makes a lot of things easier to take.
Hmm.
But I try to make them taste well too. Sweeten it up a little bit if I can. Um, yeah. But if you want to take it, you really know that this is something that could be useful to you, you're going to take it regardless of how it tastes, right?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Some of the Bach flower essences that I've tried, or I mean, all of the, so they've got two lines, some made with the with the alcohol to preserve it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then some without. And the ones without, actually, I think it doesn't say that there's anything sweet in it, but they taste sweet. I feel like they're not putting in an ingredient on on the list that like feels like it must be there. But the other ones are they can be pretty intense. They're definitely not, they don't taste good, I wouldn't say.
No.
But that's not necessarily why I'm taking them either.
Yeah, I tend to like the way herbs taste. I feel like it's part of the experience if I can if I can handle it. Some like motherwort is really, really bitter.
Mm.
It's a great herb. That one I probably won't take directly, but I do like tasting some of the herbs themselves. I just feel like it's part of the process, part of the ritual of bringing that into your body.
Yeah. I feel like it'd be interesting for me to taste them without the alcohol, without the preserves, because I feel like
Sure,
that's kind of like the overriding theme that I'm getting.
sure,
So I don't feel like I'm necessarily getting, the actual herb itself, if that makes sense. I'd
sure.
be curious about what those would taste like without. Um, but like I mentioned, that at least through Bach anyway, the ones that I've had without alcohol are sweet, and I don't like that either.
Yeah.
Um,
So then the same herbs that you may be interested in, try a tea. just make it, if it's available, whatever you're interested in, take a tea, just, that way it's just the hot water and the herb, and see how that feels for you.
Yeah.
The taste, the smell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Buy yourself a bouquet of the flower that you're interested in and just sit it on your desk or your nightstand and just breathe it in. For
Yeah.
flower essence, flower therapy, like roses. If you're called to work with roses, bring some into your home if you just want the aroma, the aromatherapy, the smell.
I love
Or
roses.
yeah, you can
Yeah.
have a
When I first
tincture.
do what?
So you can do the tincture of the rose, right? You could do a tea of rose. So there's a lot of different forms of working with that particular flower.
Yeah. So true. And flower, well, I mean, rose is a popular enough one that it's not difficult to get a hold of. It might be a bit
Right.
more expensive, but definitely not difficult to get a hold of. When I first started working with vetiver, if for me it was like initially, I don't know if you're familiar with vetiver. It's an essential oil.
Essential oils, right?
Um, but when I was introduced to it, I didn't like it. It was actually like in a aromatherapy yoga, and they gave me just a tiny bit, and I put it in my hair. But then throughout the day, it was just like I loved smelling it. Like, and now it's
Oh,
favorite. It's
ah,
amazing.
yeah.
But it's interesting how like I think with some of these, because I don't know if you've smelled vetiver. It smells very like earthy, very rooty, but very fresh. It's got such an interesting um smell to it. But it's one of those that like I feel like with some of these herbs, your sort of initial reaction to it might be really strong, but then after spending a bit of time with it, then you really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's almost how herbs tend to work too. Like, how is that making you feel? And then you're working with it and then you're moving on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. All right, Miss Kristen. Well, I know folks are going to want to learn more about you, certainly about your beautiful tinctures, and how can they connect with you? How can they work with you? Like, what are some ways for people to learn more about you and all the things?
And the best way is my website, which is trinityherbs.com. I'm still building, working on it, growing it. There's a resource page where you could book an herbal consultation and start working with me there. I am starting to develop a little bit more just resources. I have plans for more resources and educational opportunities for people that do want to start um, trying to learn where to begin, may not want an herbal consultation, but they want to start working with herbs for themselves without having to dive too deep into any way, shape, or form. So yeah, I would say the website is the best way to start just connecting with me. I'm somewhat active on Instagram. Instagram is a lot of work. I've been playing with that for the past year. Threads has been fun too. So I do tend to chime in there from time to time because I really feel like I've been connecting with people there. It seems pretty neat. Nice to
Awesome.
connect with folks one on one. So
Yeah.
those are the three ways that I'm currently active.
Yeah. And I love your kitchen remedies page. That's got
It's
some
neat.
really nice recipes there for folks who kind of want to start playing around
Yeah, I'd love
with
to
some
grow that
different,
as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
I like it. I like
it's
it a lot.
easy.
All right, Kristen. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, your wisdom, the work that you are doing in the world. I love all things nature. For folks who follow me, they know I've got to be outside all the time. And as I've gotten older,
Hmm.
being able to understand more about the plants and animals and those sorts of things around me has really become so much more of a priority. So I probably will end up taking an herbalism course at some point, just or Ayurvedic. We'll see which one pulls me the most. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the world.
You're welcome. Thank you too. It was fun chatting about it. It's really
Yes.
awesome work.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for being here and being with Kristen and I today. We appreciate your time. Be sure to share this episode with someone who can benefit from it. Leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Be sure to join the email list for additional resources, updates, and a whole number of different things that I don't share anywhere else. Sending you so much love. And don't forget, when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits. Until next time.